Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art and culture, and this is Billboard Breakdown. So now we're settling back into routine. Well, as much routine as we can expect these days, especially when Ariana Grande is coming right around the corner, probably next week. And this has led to something of a bizarre case that I've observed happen to big debuting songs in the past. They've got tons of songs smashed on the Hot 100 the first week, and yet while things might cool off dramatically the second week, the third week a whole group of them seem to bounce back. Now there are a lot of reasons for this. Initial fatigue after a binge feeding into renewed interest now, the radio picking up a few for rotation, or even the case of compensation against a reset to equilibrium. Look, my point is that a huge chunk of Drake's songs caught a second wind, and while we'll get to all of them in a second, it also meant that going to our top 10, One Dance by Drake featuring Kyla and Wizkid went back up to number 1. And the big reason is streaming. Sure, it picked up a lot of airplay traction, it had strong sales, but with still no video, the only reason it retook the top spot is streaming dominance. Similar case for Panda by Designer being strong at number 2. Good sales, decent YouTube, but if it wasn't for streaming compensating for only okay airplay, it would be a fair bit lower. All this was enough to push back Justin Timberlake's monster gains on radio and sales of Can't Stop the Feeling down to number 3. Although you could definitely make the argument that a complete collapse in streaming hasn't really helped matters for that song. And speaking of collapses, let's talk about 7 Years by Lucas Graham clinging on to number 4, which hit the airplay peak and started dropping hard, with only okay sales propping up losses on streaming and radio. Now this gives Work From Home by Fifth Harmony featuring Ty Dolla $ign a chance to advance up to number 5 on dominant YouTube, but I'm not quite sure if it has more staying power given shakier airplay, weak sales, and getting muscle back on streaming. Now this has allowed Don't Let Me Down by the Chainsmokers featuring Daya to go up to number 6, but it might have gotten there anyway thanks to solid airplay, sales, and holding its own on streaming right now. It actually rose above I Took a Pill in Ibiza by Mike Posner at number 7, which yeah, it took heavy airplay and streaming losses and only had okay sales, but YouTube is giving it that added staying power that I think nobody could have predicted in the long term. I'm actually quite happy with how well the song is done. And beyond that, well, you could easily predict the last 3. Work by Rihanna and Drake continues to fall thanks to steady but small losses in all categories, so it holds on to number 8. Pillow Talk by Zayn, same boat except without Rihanna's residual streaming at number 9. And speaking of Rihanna, Needed Me holds at number 10 thanks to huge streaming and steadily picking up some radio. It just doesn't quite have the momentum to get any higher at this point, and against stronger competition, I'm not quite certain how long it will last in the top 10, as I'll say again. And on that note, our losers and dropouts. A fair few this week in the latter category. Really, Really by Kevin Gates completes its second wind, taking with it Youth by Troye Sivan off an erratic chart run, and 2 country songs, 2 nearing the end of their run. I Like the Sound of That by Rascal Flatts and Confession by Florida Georgia Line. Granted, for a nice change of pace, country actually had a pretty slow week overall, as only Lights Come On by Jason Aldean suffered in the losses, dropping down to 91. Beyond that, the losses were a real mixed bag. The only songs with any real longevity taking hits were Promise by Kidding featuring Fetty Wap falling down to 100, and Might Not by Belly featuring The Weeknd slipping down to 80. I guess you could argue that Light It Up by Major Lazer and Nyla falling down to 87 and Kiss It Better by Rihanna skidding down to 78. They're similar cases, but that would imply the short gains that they got last week was actually momentum. The real sad case were the continued losses for Beyonce, as Formation fell down to 63 and Hold Up went down to 74. Granted, I'd probably say they were the songs I liked the least off of Lemonade, but they're still decent tracks, and Beyonce not picking up traction here is a bad sign for future single pushes. Now, some of you're probably wondering why Beyonce didn't get that second wind revival that Drake got this week and that I desperately want to avoid talking about. Well, my guess is that it's just a bad case of getting crowded off, a shade late, picking up that additional momentum, and that Beyonce songs weren't necessarily tailored / sold out for easy radio play, just a bunch of bad things at the wrong time. Whereas for Drake, let's start off with the returning entries because I want to blow through this list fast. Redemption goes to 83, Weston Road Flows goes up to 84, Keep the Family Close rises to 85, and Faithful with Division and that Pimp C sample that Drake should never have gotten cleared goes up to 90. And for gains, Controller goes to 22, Hype surges up to 35, Grammys with Future climbs up to 50, that reprehensible song Child's Play rises up to 55, With You picks up to 59, Dragging Along Party Next Door because why the hell not, 9 flips up to 60, Feel No Way scrabbles up to 61, You With Me climbs up to 68, and Fire and Desire goes up to 75. I can't say how long any of these are gonna last, but But at this point, I'm so thoroughly sick of Drake that however long it is, it will be too long. The only other non-Drake gain comes from a debut last week, with Carrie Underwood's Church Bells rising up to 79. Not entirely surprising, it's accessible, it's in a wheelhouse, and it is a good song, but there is part of me that thinks that country's kind of hedging its best by pushing it right now. Again, it's not Blown Away or Two Black Cadillacs, she's done better. But enough of all that, we now have our surprisingly diverse list of new arrivals, starting off with number 99, Unsteady by Ex-Ambassadors.
Little unsteady. Hold on to me, 'cause I'm a little unsteady. A little unsteady.
So I can't be the only one who's a little bit surprised that it took so long for Ex-Ambassadors to follow up Renegades, right? Well, okay, not that surprised. I didn't cover VHS because all signs and buzz indicated that it was as boring as tar, but this... it's okay, I guess. It's got a little less rollicking energy, playing off a rougher drum progression that seems borderline trapped with the hi-hat, and a very muted piano for any sort of melody, but it's playing for a very different vibe, from the position of a child trying to convince his parents to stay together when they're on the verge of splitting up in divorce. Not a bad premise, and frontman Sam Harris sells the hell out of it. The vocals are quite good, but the writing is very thin. We don't get a lot of details into the situation or why these two are better apart or together. I can appreciate for the sake of the child arguments on some level, but I can't be the only one who thinks that if you love me, don't let go is such a blunt way of delivering that message that I can't quite buy into the situation. There just isn't a lot of nuance there. I don't know, it's not a bad song, but again, I don't think I'm going to care about this song in a day or two, which is pretty much the same thing I say about all Ex-Ambassadors songs. Sorry. Number 94, I'm Sorry by Alan Wakefield. So as longtime viewers of Billboard Breakdown probably remember, normally I'm stuck covering a lot of songs from The Voice. This season, not so much, and I can't say I'm complaining. Like it or not, The Voice as a cultural phenomenon has boosted the careers of the judges more than any contestant, and even less going into season 10, and at this point it's not even subtle. Adam Wakefield is quite literally performing an album track from Blake Shelton, his judge. Now, this song was originally a ballad that Blake Shelton made with Martina McBride, but it's really a solo track because she's playing a glorified backing vocalist, and also because this song sucks. I can appreciate Blake Shelton flipping up the expected script and not accepting the girl's apology for whatever she did, but the middle of the road tone and the presentation doesn't make it all that believable or remotely likable or sympathetic. Now, to be fair, Adam Wakefield makes the best of a bad song by trying to play it a little bit more raw and stripped back, which is really the right way to play it, but it's also very clear that he's trying to be Chris Stapleton and he's nowhere near as raw or emotive. Whiskey and You, this is not. I might prefer to Blake Shelton's original, but I'm still not really wild about this song. Number 93, Blessings by Chance the Rapper.
Praise him till I'm gone. I'm gone. Praise him till I'm gone. When the praises go up,
The blessings come down. When the praises go up, the blessings come down.
Okay, now we got some quality here with one of the best songs from Chance the Rapper's pretty damn good mixtape coloring book. And yeah, the song totally holds up. Jamila Woods adds some good balance against Chance's meandering flow. Nico's horn sprays across the mix, but it's never too processed or obtrusive. And Chance's bars about accepting success and then being able to move forward to whatever tribulations might come, they have some real weight to them and some great references. But really, the impact of the song comes right after the second verse, where the trumpet blasts and we quite literally get the sounds of collapsing masonry and the song just blowing through. And while I initially wish they would explode after that with a more of a climax, I appreciate Jamila Woods kind of downplaying it. Otherwise, that exaltation might have gone over the top in a way that wouldn't really work for the vibe that Chance was going for the song. But yeah, this track, absolutely great. Definitely a favorite this week. Check it out if you haven't. It's awesome. Number 92, That Part by Schoolboy Q featuring Kanye West.
Bitches, independent bitches. That part, I just want the paper. That part, all my bitches flavor. that part, that part, that part, that part.
You know, as much as I liked Oxymoron, released back in 2014 when I reviewed it, it feels like it has been a while since Schoolboy Q's last record, longer than it really has been. So thus to see him back and with the Kanye West feature of all things, it's kind of encouraging, and yeah, it's nice to see Kanye rapping, but I'm not really wild about this song. Part of it is the instrumental, another bass-saturated slog where the melody seems to be constantly on the edge of falling off key, and while I dig the even darker, hollow switch-up midway through the song, it's not quite enough to really win me over here, especially considering how hollow the content is. Maybe it's just because I've heard Schoolboy Q do so much better with a lot better content, but lazy flexing on a flow that doesn't remotely come close to getting visceral, that doesn't really interest me. At least Kanye West is kind of funny as he talks about Kim getting pissed off at him and being at the strip club, and then he still screws her doggy style and talks about her breast implants, and wow, Kanye, you just keep writing those divorce papers for her. But at the end of the day though, I've never really been wild about Schoolboy Q's choice of singles, and this is not an exception, because it really is just okay, at best. Number 86, No Problem by Chance the Rapper featuring 2 Chainz and Lil Wayne. You know, this song keeps growing on me with every single listen, probably more than it should if I'm being honest. I'm not wild about Chance the Rapper's enunciation, he's playing to a very slurred, Young Thug-esque style, but I do mostly like his constant thrashing against major labels who keep trying to screw him over. And to his credit, Lil Wayne mostly stays on topic and joins in, even if midway through his verse he calls himself Jesus Carter and goes off about finding a warm vagina. Wonderful. And then there's 2 Chainz. Look, I said it before and I'll say it again. When you have a hook this propulsive, I can normally excuse some flubbed rhymes, but run shit like diarrhea? That's gross. You don't need to hop on the poop jokes now that Lil Wayne is pulling himself together. But really, the reason why the song works is the pre-chorus and the hook, and the blended crowd of gospel vocals might be a tad shrill and lacking a little bit more background and bass presence, but it kind of works for what this song is. And yeah, though it does have a lot of problems, still a pretty good song. I'll take it. Number 69, The Fighter by Keith Urban featuring Carrie Underwood. So apparently this was actually a pretty good week for Carrie Underwood, because now she's showing up on this non-country song with Keith Urban. And no, I don't want to hear it. No organic percussion, a backdrop of synth, a lot of airy guitar flutters to try and flesh out a melody, and absolutely no organic texture to remotely make this feel country, except for maybe 4 bars in the bridge. But okay, on the standards of pop music, does it work? Barely. Carrie Underwood is not bringing her A game to match Keith Urban. I don't remotely buy she's going to be running to Keith Urban for emotional support. It'd probably be the other way around. Look, as a pop song, it's okay, but it's certainly not all that interesting, and I know that both artists can really do a lot better, whether in pop or in country. As it is, yeah, kind of mediocre. Number 67, Wherever I Go by OneRepublic.
Wherever I go, you're the ghost in the room. I don't even try looking for something new. 'Cause wherever I go, I'll be looking for you.
You know, on some level, the progression of OneRepublic's career has been kind of fascinating, where they started off pumping out the sort of middle-of-the-road adult alternative blandness that I found either boring or insufferable, but their album Native saw a change in the band. It seemed like Ryan Tedder himself was getting restless or bored, can't really blame him, and that made him to actually making some decent music, like Counting Stars and Love Runs Out. This, well, it doesn't really continue down that path, or any path that One Direction has ever taken, because this is a really weird song and I'm not convinced it's good. I could start off with the odd reverb saturation around any sort of melody that breaks into an oddly muddy acoustic guitar line that takes way too long to rise out of the murk with the thicker synth, and none of it really matches with Ryan Tedder trying to balance his rougher mid-range with his full falsetto, or the lyrics that could be speaking about finding faith or religion, but I suspect run closer to finding passionate love or something for someone. What's more important is that, well, it's nowhere near as interesting, propulsive, groove-driven, or visceral as OneRepublic tried to be for certain songs on Native. It really feels like he's catering to what's popular on the radio right now, and yeah, I'll be honest, for not doing that well, that's kind of a disappointment. Sorry. And finally, number 39, Me Too by Meghan Trainor.
If I was you,
And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have, for everyone's general annoyance, one of the worst songs to come out in recent memory. I don't think I gave Me Too enough of my bile when I covered Thank You, so let's get into this track in detail, shall we? Because it blows. The blubbery bass line sounds imported from a bad will.i.am production. It sounds like a scream and shout pitched down, and that's not a compliment. It only breaks in snippets for a hint of groove that evaporates as soon as the hook comes in, and maybe with pitch-shifted fragments to complete the headache. But it's the ego about this song that pisses me off, because this track is so satisfied with itself for no damn good reason. I'm not wild about flexing songs in general, see my comments about Schoolboy Q and Kanye earlier, but Meghan Trainor adds a hook specifically targeting you, and she's not remotely interesting in any of her bragging. I don't care if she has an entourage or flashy jewelry, but she follows up with My Life's a Movie, Tom Cruise, because apparently hashtag rap is still a thing, and So Bless Me Baby, Achoo. I shouldn't even have to tell you what that line is asinine. So yeah, this track, one of the worst I've heard thus far in 2016, considerably worse than No, and I can only hope this will never ever be a hit, because it is terrible. So yeah, that's our week, and the worst you should already know. But moving Meghan Trainor aside, Dishonourable mention is a little trickier, but you want me to go with Wherever I Go by OneRepublic. Only because it feels like a total mess and really is a disappointment. Just keeps getting worse every time I hear it. Best of the week is easy. Chance the Rapper walks away with both, for Blessings being the best, and honorable mention going, despite its many, many problems, to no problem with 2 Chainz and Lil Wayne. As I said, it keeps growing on me. Next week is probably going to be Ariana's week, but who knows what madness awaits us if Drake's material sticks around. But till then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown on Spectre Pulse, and I'll see you next time.